I'd like to talk about the meaning behind the parables in the Lotus Sutra. And the reason I'd like to talk about it is because it's my personal opinion that nobody in the world understands it correctly, or at least very few do. One of the reasons behind my observation is because, first off, the Lotus Sutra is mainly read and understood by Buddhists, since it was written by Buddha. Christianity, Judaism, and all that kind of stuff, they've got their own Bibles and scriptures and stuff like that. And they don't dwell on things written by Buddha or Buddhist type stuff. But in fact, I believe that's why it's misunderstood by Eastern philosophy world, is because incorporate both the type Judaic Christian type understanding of reality with a God hierarchy type entity, rather than the Eastern philosophy type understanding of all things. If you incorporate it that way, then the Lotus Sutra is more easily understood. And I believe the way I read it is all of the parables in the Lotus Sutras are all geared towards the same foundational type message. And the message is what everyone misses. That's why everyone calls it a mystery and they don't understand it and stuff like that. Here's the problem with understanding it. If I was a producer of wine, and I produced all kinds of wine, and I wrote an article on a particular bottle of wine that I produce, and since I'm the producer, I'm most qualified to write about its qualities. And if I did, that writing wouldn't change for thousands of years. People could study it for a lifetime, the writings, and yet not know as much as a person that just by happenstance happens to drink some of the wine that I actually produced. So the person that drinks it and then reads the article would go, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's pretty much describes the wine. But another person that reads about it for a lifetime says they think they understand it, but when they drink the wine they go, oh, okay, now I understand. That is the problem with understanding the Lotus Sutra. You first have to be enlightened and understand reality from the base that Buddha was from, and then reading it, you would understand it because it makes sense, because it's describing you. It's describing what you already understand. It's like your shadow, for instance. If you are a weakling, for instance, and you have a shadow from the sun, you cast the shadow of a weakling. And if you were an Olympian, you would cast the shadow of an Olympian. But if you're a weakling and you study the shadow of an Olympian, you could study that shadow for 1 trillion years and you're never going to become an Olympian. Hard work, dirty hands, that's what causes a person to become an Olympian, and then their shadow casts the shadow of an Olympian. The same thing with the Lotus Sutra. I like the way they named it, calling it the Lotus Sutra, because the lotus is an absolutely beautiful flower with petals and everything that are like Teflon coated, because it comes out of a mud hole, and it's just absolutely beautiful. It has none of the mud and goo sticking to it. A prime example out of Bible scripture would be like Job, for instance. He went through major trials and lost his wife and family and everything else, just a living hell, but yet he was so beautiful in his love and respect for God. That is the base meaning in the Lotus Sutra, is the respect and love of God. Now, of course, if you don't understand the nature of Godhood and reality, which Eastern philosophy doesn't, then you're not going to be able to understand the Lotus Sutra. Buddha did, but everyone since Buddha has misunderstood what he was talking about. Jesus talked about it also, and they got all these commandments and this and that and everything else, but really Jesus said, love God with all your heart, might, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor, and then love yourself. And everything else is just an aspect of that. The Lotus Sutra is the same way. If you love God, but of course if you don't know there's a God, first off, you can't get off first base. But if you love God, love your neighbor and yourself, then you are like the weakling. You are lifting weights to gain the strength to become an Olympian. And if you love God, love yourself, and love your neighbor, and you spend a lifetime doing that, eventually it's like lifting weights. You'll be able to cast the shadow of an Olympian, and then when you read about it, you'll say, yeah, that's me. That is the Lotus Sutra. That's the essence. There's two types of power in the universe, and that's what it's talking about, the power of love. It's like taking magnets, and you turn them this way, and they attract each other. You turn them this way, and they oppose each other. Equal and opposing. The love of the universe, or the love of the Buddha, or the Buddhas, is what he's talking about. And Jesus too, same thing. Jesus says, I and the Father are one. One in what way? In what way is they come together through love. But if you have magnets, like everything in this world misunderstands the concept of love and misunderstands that whole nature of reality, because everything in this world, meaning our governments, our police, our religions, everything is based upon the opposite of love. It's based on rules, it's based on policy, it's placed on force, all of these things are the opposite of love. For instance, bring together, known in the world, it's like there's a magnet here and a magnet here that are opposite, and they're forcing things together or apart, or however you look at it, that's the way it is. But love is an attractant that brings things together. That's the power of love. That's the power behind what the Lotus Sutra is talking about. It is what unites everything in the universe. And I don't mean just the universe, because the universe is just a speck when you consider that there are an infinite number of universes in different realms of existence, for example. And when you read that sutra, he talks about Buddhas in all directions, up, down, everywhere. You talk about a tesseract, which is a fourth dimensional thing, and I mean, it goes on in all directions, everywhere, Buddhas and everywhere, and it's all about love, and it's all about an attraction that keeps everything together. That's the power of God. That's the power. Now, the reason Christianity doesn't like or doesn't really respect Buddhism, but if you think about it, Buddha was 500 years before Christ. He didn't understand, or he didn't know about Judaism, so it doesn't matter. I mean, the Jews call it the great I am, and Buddha just calls it Buddha. It's all the same. It doesn't make any difference. It's all the same. But the whole point of that is that power, that attractant love, the essence of the Lotus Sutra is darn near incomprehensible to understand in this world, because it's not, I say love, but in this world we don't really understand love. I mean, you think of a husband and wife, and that's love and everything else. That is a small aspect of love. Love is much greater than what we really know it to be. It is a sacrifice of everything you are and everything you ever will become, expecting zero in return, and you don't care about that because you love the entity that you are sacrificing to, which is God. And in Buddha's case, it is the Buddha above him, and the Buddha above him, and the Buddha above him, and the Buddha in all directions. But when they say the Buddha, it's getting back to the essence of all power, which is the ultimate Buddha, which is God. Same thing in Judaism and in all other religions that originated from the very beginning. Anyways, I hope that's helpful, and I hope that makes some sense to you, and I hope that you take that into account when you read the Lotus Sutra over and over again, and hopefully it'll make sense to you.